There's magic in New Orleans, not just in its name but in the air. And depending on who you believe, it actually was a thing. Voodoo existed. And perhaps if some of the artwork is anything to go by, still does. But I don't actually believe a gree-gree is required, because if you walk around enough, pay suitable attention, you realize that you're just lucky enough to be here. New Orleans is at so many levels an anachronism. It's got one foot in the future, sure, but one that stays resolutely in the past. It's got more charm than a truck full of bracelets. It's a city that would wither and die if it weren't filled with song. And it's a city that lives by its kitchens. Amen. A cuisine confined just to this area, formed and shaped entirely by migrants when it was the New World. That food has so many facets that you could spend a month and still discover a surprise or few. Those who have watched our first round of adventures may have noticed that we've notched beignets, broiled oysters and blackened fish off our list of must-haves. And now, well, it's time for something more. Po' boys are what I need to have. The po' boy is a sandwich, and you know, there I was walking around working up an appetite when I saw the sign. Joey K's, that looks good. A delightful corner entrance, and it turns out inside it's even more charming. I suspect they've also got the menu to match.
We try to do very New Orleans home cooking kind of food, and we cook things like your mother would make for us.
Pretty much my favorite words is the next suggestion.
Well, it's so nice today, let's sit outside.
Perfect. It's lovely inside the 100-year-old building, but the day does call for al fresco. Also, evidently, a feast of fairly epic proportions. And there, my po' boy. What's a po' boy, you ask? It's a sandwich, albeit one with an unusual name.
A po' boy is a very traditional New Orleans food.
Yes.
That goes back, I'm not even sure how long, probably the 1930s.
Right.
It may be times of the Depression in the 30s when people didn't have a lot of money to eat. They came up with this sandwich, and so they called it po' boy, like right, poor boy.
Juicy Gulf shrimp, crisp fried in batter, served dressed, which means with lettuce, mayo, tomatoes and pickles. And the bread, it has to be baguette.
French bread, very you can't, in fact, it's the way we have French bread here, you don't even find it that way in other cities.
The name po' boy actually seems like a misnomer. I mean, there's nothing in this that sort of indicates that even its roots hark back to, you know, less prosperous times. But here's the thing, anywhere in the world you go, or at least to the corners I've been in, breads, meals stuffed in bread, the ultimate sort of working man's meals, anywhere. They're all fantastic, from the bap in Belfast to a bunny chow in Durban, from our own vada pav to this, the po' boy. Yeah, we have much to thank that time for. However much the people then suffered, today we are reaping the benefits.
And since we're on the subject of deep fried treats, do spare a moment for their twice batter fried onion rings. They're crispy, crunchy, greasy bites of goodness. Also large enough that I am able to attempt my best Princess Leia impersonation.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
I'll tell you, once I stop playing and start eating, they are actually good enough to transport me to a galaxy far, far away, as is a lot of the rest. This, for example, their Eggplant Napoleon. Crumb-fried slices layered in a stack, interspersed with shrimp, topped with a crayfish sauce. Is there anything I could add to that other than, my God, that's good?
Everything here is centered around food. No matter what you do, the question is, what are we going to have to eat?
Yeah. Then a plate that might look a little familiar. Pay attention.
They call it red beans and rice, but you and I folks, we know what it is. This, folks, is their answer to Rajma Chawal.
They call it red beans and rice, and they prepare it very differently. It's cooked in stock, minus the masalas, spiced by the accompanying sausage, and has, like everything else here, a story to accompany it.
This started years ago. Supposedly on Mondays is the day that women would wash their clothes.
Okay.
So they didn't have a lot of time to prepare dinner. So in the morning, they put on a big pot of red beans. Every Monday you had red beans and rice.
Well, I think it's really good. different, and the sort of addition of sausage actually makes things quite interesting. I have to say that Rajma Chawal is the winner in this case.
That's actually fair because they have so many other winners like bread pudding. It's the dessert they love most, and the dessert they do very, very well. It's all crusty on the outside and moist and stodgy on the inside. Better yet, it's served slathered with their particularly potent rum caramel sauce.
I mean, it's admirable, but it's also kind of terrifying, this absolute focus on utter excess. I mean, I'm literally convinced that moderation is not a word that people understand. Forget that, I'm not even sure that they acknowledge it as a word. Like, you go up to a person in New Orleans, you'd be like, moderation, and they'd be like, speak English, please, right? If it's not batter fried, it's double batter fried. If it's not smothered in butter or cream or garlic, then it's slathered in booze. For me though, at this precise moment, I just gotta sit back and give thanks for it.
And of course, I must honor the spirit here. And so once I am able to haul myself out of my seat, I continue my pursuit of more indulgence. It's what you do in New Orleans, and really the Windsor Court Hotel is the place to do it. To walk into their charming courtyard is to feel like you have been transported back in time. It's charming and old world and quaint and really a little out of a book. Then walk inside and travel back even further. It's a throwback, a grand, gracious sprawl of a space. But true to form, then and now, I head straight to the place where I will be fed and watered. In this case, the Grill Room and Polo Club Lounge. A long, beautiful bar unsurprisingly takes center stage, and that is where I head to. You see, New Orleans is a city that knows how to wash their meals down too.
What should my first sort of sip of New Orleans be?
New Orleans is very known for Julep Drinks.
Apparently, the julep is essential. A mint julep made with mint, ginger syrup, bourbon, and masses of crushed ice. Look at that. That's a drink that would work as well back home. That's delicious.
Oh my God. Wow. It's delicious, but it's strong.
Exactly, and you get all the fresh mint while you're enjoying it at the same time.
And then, well, a drink which I haven't ever had before.
The other one that I should have is probably one of the most classic drinks really created in New Orleans. It's the Sazerac. Rye whiskey, an absinthe rinse, finished with a dash of Peychaud's bitters, and a lemon twist. We have a version that is the Whistle Pig Sazerac.
A Whistle Pig Sazerac. I have no idea what that is, but for the sake of the name, I want it. Good call, as it turned out. And then, even better, the Windsor Court's chef de cuisine Daniel Cosgrove arrived bearing greater treats, and one of them I was delighted to see was a gumbo.
Gumbo, which of course is a well-known New Orleans classic.
Yes. This is actually my first proper gumbo, and it's just gorgeous.
Gumbo is as well known as it is. It's really difficult to find a classically made gumbo anywhere other than New Orleans. Very protective of our food traditions, and that's what's preserved it.
A gumbo is the dish probably most associated with New Orleans. A hearty soup, though that's perhaps too simple a term. Made with the meat of the moment, a corresponding stock, and most critically a roux, a flour and oil at the base of it. Cooked together, it's what makes the magic.
You want to make it as dark as you possibly can without burning it, so it's a very kind of painstaking process. You have to be there stirring the pot. I mean, I think it's also an interesting thing because roux normally is used for thickening.
Yes.
You know, roux, when you make it that dark, it actually loses its effectiveness as a thickener, but it just kind of gives it that mystical depth that gumbo has, and you know, so it's, who knows why it was done, but it was a really good choice.
It really was. It rounds it off, deepens it, so every bite is layered and rich and dark and delicious enough to drown in.
I think when you have a gumbo this well is when you A, start to understand what the fuss is all about, B, you start to understand the city a little better. This, folks, simply is heart and soul in a bowl.
And then, well, I try some of their crab cakes. Crab cakes, mind you, that are filled with only crab. No crumb, no filler, no padding, just juicy local crab that is sweet, plump, delicious with Creole mustard and a honey sauce. They're lucky people, those who live here. Take this, what they call their fried oyster salad. Those fat, beautiful Gulf oysters, crisp fried, served with kale crisp, radicchio, and a chili vinaigrette. This is smart, sophisticated cooking that hasn't for a second taken its eye off the goal.
You know, so what I think I love most about this dish is the fact that it takes something that is ubiquitous, that is greasy, that is all access, right? You're going to get fried oysters everywhere you look. And it elevates it into a dish that is elegant, not just for its presentation, which is amazing, but because of the complexity, because of the play of textures and flavors that it uses. I mean, this kale, this chili vinaigrette, these oysters, radicchio. Yeah, this crush of mine on New Orleans is not going anywhere anytime soon. This is about to become a full-blown love affair.
And then, well, we have saved one of my favorites for last. Crab gratin, like you haven't seen it before.
Not so classic crab gratin. Like crab meat au gratin is a classic sort of New Orleans Creole dish. Indulgence, the rich, creamy bechamel full of crab meat and some cheese. And this is my version where I lightened it up and tried to give it a little more nuance. Gulf jumbo lump crabs, cooked in a sherry cream with a little bit of caviar, braised radishes, asparagus, and a little bit of black garlic. This laid over top of it is a slice of manchego cheese that kind of just...
So how much of a fan of New Orleans am I? Let's put it this way. If New Orleans were a person, I might be facing stalker charges by now.
Don't judge me, I'm certainly not the first to come here, eat its food, meet its folks, and lose my heart. Especially since there's so much to lose it too. You'll get a taste of more just after this break.